Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the CatBotAI Podcast. I'm Catherine Brinkman, one of your co-hosts. And with me today, I have
Ken Panacchini. You're the co-host here with the CatBotAI. And we have a fantastic guest here today who Catherine and I have known for some time, bringing a great perspective about some of the experiences with AI he's encountered in his current line of work, which you'll hear more about in a second. So, Catherine, would you like to introduce our good friend, David?
Yes. So David is someone that is actually a professor of accounting. And I think if we were to have this conversation 2 years ago, it would be very different. And when I say that I'm wearing my UCLA shirt. I'm not going to hide it. If I were in college, I would definitely be using AI to help me with my homework. And I'm not sure if that's necessarily the ethical standpoint. So, David, if you would please introduce yourself, let us know what it is and where, what is it that you facilitate and train and teach? And then also what university you're at.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I've been a college professor now since about 2001, and I started off in person. Mainly I do online right now. I never leave my home office. The idea, though, is I'm with several different universities right now. I'm with Pittsburgh State up in Massachusetts, a public university. I teach at the graduate level there. And ironically, the course I teach is called Ethics in Accounting. Yes. And I also teach for Bryant Stratton. I teach all different levels there, primarily all undergraduate, though. Over the years, though, I have designed programs. I have worked with students in person, online, and have a good background of not only what students need, I also keep my finger on the pulse of what businesses need and want. And it's interesting, you made the comment, Catherine, about 2 years ago, I probably would have had a difference of opinion. And what's driving my change of opinion is corporate America. And the fact that I think corporate America is now starting to see AI as a great resource. And thus, one of my major objectives as a professor is not only do I want my students to know accounting when they graduate, I want them to have the tools to succeed. And that means knowing accounting, that means knowing how to put together a proper sentence, that means knowing how to present that to people on your feet. And thus, AI now is a tool that I think students need, even if there are still ethical concerns with it.
So you teach one class that is all about ethics.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your concerns or have been your concerns around AI and using AI within that particular class?
The fact that there's two sides to it. One, students will take the discussion question they're supposed to do, throw it into an AI prompter like ChatGPT, and then just spit out or just copy and paste what they've gotten back from ChatGPT. So one, they're robbing themselves of the education of the learning process. So whatever that discussion is about, they're not actually even thinking about it. So that's my first concern. My second concern is when they post it and they don't cite it properly, that it's ChatGPT, they're lying. Because the discussions are literally supposed to be in your own words. And thus, they are lying. Yeah, and that is the biggest step or biggest problem ethically. I'm old enough to remember quite vividly WorldCom in Iran. And going into that, if you were to survey people, the accounting profession was up here. We were so respected. And I refuse. And I've had arguments with my dean about not just the use of AI, but other just plagiarism in general, that it's not about the fact that they didn't do what they're supposed to be done. I don't want an accountant out there calling themselves an accountant who's willing to do something like that.
Yeah.
Would you want an accountant who is willing to cheat that way on their work, now doing your taxes.
No, we
I'm
had
not
a
knocking the
discussion
door.
on this, and I was appalled. Because again, I am numerically dyslexic. I do understand numbers when there's a dollar sign in front of it. And I definitely have had accountants explain things to me where I'm kind of like, wait a minute. The whole point of you having someone do my return is that they are smarter, that they are like they're making the right decision where I may make an error indirectly, but if they're making an error on purpose, I just was slightly stunned
Yeah.
when we had this conversation. So
Yeah. I mean, I've had clients of mine ask me to do something on their tax return that I refuse to do. And they go, aren't you supposed to do what I, no. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you back the documents. I'll give you your forms. If you want to sign it, that's fine.
Right.
My name will not go on it because I don't agree with it. And so that's a big piece. It's once again, it's not just the getting through school unethically. It's now you've got a professional out there who might be fudging an audit or fudging internal reports or tax returns. And corporate America, businesses, banks revolve around effective audited financial reports. And so it's much bigger than cheating your way through school. And that's the big picture of AI and that was what my concern was 2 years ago, was students are just going to take it and not be able to do their work. My opinion's changed.
how so?
Well, I'm still concerned that they're going to do that. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I've just explored more and looked at alternatives. And once again, as I mentioned earlier, it is a tool they do need to do. So I worked with my dean about 4 months ago, and I tried it as an experiment last semester. It didn't go over that well. Not that they did anything wrong. It's just that we have to give them an option. So they had 2 options on a discussion question. One is to do the AI. The other one was just the answer. And most of them just chose just the answer. So I'm trying to push them more into AI. And so what we've decided to do is to show them how AI is still a legitimate tool that could be used, if you want to think about it, as a reference source. So I give them the prompts. They're supposed to put the prompts into ChatGPT, and then they're going to take what ChatGPT gives them, put that into the Word document, cite it as ChatGPT, and then summarize into their own words what ChatGPT gave them. And so that's going to force them to read what ChatGPT gave them, hopefully learning something from that, as well as you're also learning good summary skills, which is something that's also valuable.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm starting to lean. I wanted to get curious about AI. So I even sent a notice out to them, an announcement, in which I went in and I created an AI generated picture. I say, hey, this is AI generated. Let's talk about how we can do things like this, just to kind of spark that. And then I'm going to keep working on it. Our semester literally is starting Wednesday. So I'm going to start working on them. And once again, at week 6, that discussion question, I'm going to try it the same way. This time around, try to push more of them to trying ChatGPT and see how it goes. But yeah, it will become a tool that they'll learn to use, not fake.
And I'm just thinking, because I did sell robotic process automation into back office, and we did actually put in some tools within accounting firms. And it's really cool because you can take looking at a return and take 20, 30 minutes to look at it, where you just drop it into this robotic process automation system, and the robot will sit and highlight what's wrong. So to your point, what brings me to think that this is so important is the human connection part of an accountant. It's, no offense, stereotypically not always the warm and fuzzy. When you're able to take an image, though, like you have, and hopefully we can grab that and share that at some point. Take an image that resonates with you, share that with your clients. You're building that human part. And also to
Mhm.
what you said that was interesting was when you do get those errors, sometimes it's like somebody inverted a number, or there's the robots have
Right.
gotten so good now that if there's questions around like mileage, did you really like explain why you traveled this much? It helps the accountants to actually have those
Right.
thinking cognitive skills. And to
Mhm.
what you said, you're talking about thinking on their feet. They can have those like hard hitting conversations. Like in California, my accountant was tough. He was like, "Did you really drive this much? Show me some receipts, show me some things." And finally, he was like, "Give me a month worth of where your sales calls were, where you were driving, blah, blah, blah." And I did. And he goes, "Okay, I'm fine signing my name to this."
Yeah.
But it was because he had those people skills and that conversation level to sit and kind of like, "Hey, wait a minute." So I like that. I like the fact you're coaching students to actually think of people, not just numbers.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's funny you said that about this people skills, right? I was doing a program earlier today, and it was a corporate program, and it was a program on finance. It was for the middle managers to kind of teach them some finance. And what it was arranged with the CFO, she wanted to introduce some other stuff to them first. So she had the first hour of a 3-hour program. And I'm sitting here, and I have to say, because it was in Europe, it was a little early. So I'm sitting here trying to keep myself awake as she's teaching. She didn't even come on webcam as she's going through this. And at the end, I kind of joked to my producer, I went, that's why we have a bad reputation. It was dry. It was, so that goes back to what I said before, that accountants need to know more than just accounting. They also need to know how to deliver that information, whether that is one-on-one or standing up, whatever that might be. It's about taking it, because my other real thought, and this is where AI also comes back into play,
Yeah.
is the generic skills that we are teaching an accountant to be able to do. 90% of that is going to be replaced by AI.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
It's going to be that conversational part. It's going to be that, okay, Catherine, here's what I've got. Let me explain to you where we might be able to go with this. Now, AI could generate something like that. It's not going to be as good as if you and I are sitting there conversing about it. That's what I call the job security portion of becoming an accountant.
Thank you.
It's being able to take that into the next level. And that's not just for accountants.
No.
That happens to be my passion. That happens to be what I deliver. But it's not just accountants who need to understand that it's AI is going to do a lot of the grunt work, if you want to call it that. It's going to be, now what do we take that AI gave us and present it to our clients, to present it to our C-suite, to present it to whomever, and put it in their vernacular and
And I
talk in
think,
terms of their interests.
and the thing that also is coming up is discompliance and proprietary information. You may be working with a client or a company where you cannot put that stuff into an open source AI.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's teaching students that part as well, because it's just a free for all. And you don't think about, hey, I'm uploading this. And then you have no idea what you're uploading. Like, it's open source. Once it's in there, it's out there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've discussed this in the past, but I've read that New York Times is going after ChatGPT because it's spewing back out blocks of stuff that's been published by the New York Times and not citing the New York Times for it. So maybe we have to teach ChatGPT proper citations first.
That would be fantastic.
Actually, that brings up a good point too. In fact, I think Catherine ran into this once. Didn't you had something that was written with the help of AI, and it made up the citations? They were totally fictitious. Totally
made
fictitious.
up the quotes, made up the citations. It was so good at the citations, it literally created the periodicals with the page number, everything. And when I went to fact check it, I'm like, what is happening? So I know we call it a hallucination, whatever. That's beyond a hallucination. That's like you just had a stroke. Because it was I was not amused. And that's when I actually cut back on using ChatGPT for some of my stuff and just went old school.
No,
Yeah, it's sorry, Debbie, go ahead.
go ahead. Right, Ken.
That sort of thing. And then I remember too, you had that paper ready to go. It was fantastic. And then just double
On a
check some of
whim,
those
on a whim.
sources.
Yeah, on a whim. I mean, David, I went through and I proofread things. I changed it so it didn't sound like AI. And I just assumed the sources were correct. I assumed the quotes were correct. And then just on a whim, I'm like, let me just double check a couple of these just to make sure. And after 3 of them being wrong, I'm like, the whole thing's wrong.
So, have you run into that? Like during, let's say, a student turns in something and it's just a fictitious source or something totally made up.
I haven't yet, and maybe it's because I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of checking the source yet. Okay. I can usually spot when something's student written and not student written. That I can usually spot. Generally, though, if I see it in quotation marks with this proper citation, I'd let them get away with it. Now, now you've got my spidey senses going, and I might just need to start, clicking on 1 or 2 of these citations to see where they're going. It's like I said, to me, I'm okay with them quoting. I'm okay with direct quotes. Now, what I do have in every syllabus that I put together is a phrase, and one of my deans, the dean at Fitchburg State University, loves this. I said, in academia, giving us a direct quote for a definition is not sufficient. If you want to directly quote something and then put it in your own words, that's what we're looking for. Because if if I ask you what is accrual accounting and you go out and you find a quote and you actually cite it, okay, you're not plagiarizing. I still don't know whether or not you know what accrual accounting is.
Right.
Right? Okay. So I still want something in your own words. So, AI, I think, can be good about that. Once again, if you want to cite it that you took it from ChatGPT, I'd accept that as a source. Just like any other source, I'd accept that. I still want you now to summarize it or put it in your own words to show that the learning is happening. So it's not unethical now, in my mind, to use ChatGPT if it's used as a source, just like I used encyclopedias when I was a kid.
Right.
But I had to cite them.
It's a fantastic analogy too, because it is, except for as we talked about, double check those sources. Because once that happened to Catherine, I started doing the same thing myself. But I used encyclopedias as well. We always had to cite what they were, right? And it's sort of the same thing. So is this, I know you're using it in your courses right now. Is this something that's you see school-wide, or a lot of other professors adopting this sort of strategy, or is this something unique?
Not yet. The one in which I'm doing the discussion question, that's at Bryant Stratton. And my dean there is really excited. She's like, show me let's talk about this and what the response is. So I'm sort of piloting this whole idea. At the same time, we have online faculty meetings. In the faculty meetings, we have meetings and we have discussions and so on. And I encouraged her to create a discussion thread that any professor can use. That what have you done about AI, either to prevent it or to introduce it or whatever it is, just a discussion thread about AI. Because I do work from my home, so I'm not even sure what else is going on. Bryant Stratton's got 8 campuses plus an online campus, so I couldn't even begin to tell you what's going on out there. I think just really kind of coming up with some ideas here. And like I said, we can either embrace it and find a way to make it work or let it run us over. And I'm a boomer, but I'm not going to get run over by it.
I still can't believe you're a boomer. Your mindset is not that of a boomer. We've had this conversation.
And I think some of it is, like I said, my first criteria is that student, when they graduate, is the most employable student. I want employers going, we want more from that school.
Nice.
And if
Yeah.
that means they can sit in front of a computer and use AI, if that means they can make a presentation, if that means they can balance a balance sheet, hopefully, right? And all the accounting part of it, and these other parts are such key, like, and that's what is going to, in a very selfish way, create a reputation for the school, create a reputation for me, and put more students in the seats. That's a selfish reason. The other part of it, though, is I want to be proudly say I'm part of Bryant Stratton. And I don't want to be part of a school that's been caught up in AI scandals. And there are some of them out there.
Yeah. Yes. Are you seeing any software in particular that people are using? I mean, there's some that are specific to accounting, I think. Sage accounting.
Not at the academic level, because the academic level, they're still primarily using it for discussion. So it's primarily ChatGPT at the undergraduate level, especially. And, I've had this argument too. This is, once again, not about AI, but we've been teaching accounting the same way at least for 40 some odd years when I took it. Who knows how much longer, even before I took it, we're teaching accounting the exact same way. Spend hours after hours after hours writing journal entries.
And
which I haven't written a journal entry outside of academia, and I can't tell you how many years, right? You just don't do it anymore. So that being said, can you imagine these professors, who most of them are still older than me, jumping on the bandwagon with AI? Okay, they're still wanting their students to continue to wear down their pencils writing journal entries. Okay, which is another passion project of mine, is to recreate academia, the first level of accounting, to teach them accounting that starts with computers and starts with technology, and they understand what's going on in the background. Because when I teach this computerized accounting class, the students are like, I go, so how are we going to check that report? Well, I'll look at the numbers from this report. Not going to work. Right? Because the software is a database driven software. The numbers on this report are coming from the exact same locations, the number on that report. It's going to go to the same database and pull the same data, right?
Yeah.
If you ever get two different numbers, there's something else going on in your system. It's not that your numbers are wrong, right? And they don't understand that. So that's important for them to understand, because they can't, imagine them getting a job, and if their boss goes, did you check these numbers? Yeah, I pulled this report to check it.
Yeah. What I found interesting too is that you're encouraging the use of, computerization and the use of computers rather in academia and especially in their accounting. And you touched on this a little earlier too, but I find it fascinating that a lot of students chose not to use the AI for the summary, whereas a couple of years ago, everybody was just trying to copy paste it. I find that fascinating.
I don't know whether they're intimidated by it, don't know how to use it. I mean, I put details in there, like go to this website, I gave them a link to ChatGPT, plug this in, I give them what literally the screen looks like when you get there, plug this into that. I mean, I give them the steps. This time around, I'm going to do it as a video. That might encourage them more. Because ChatGPT is not part of their process, I can't require them to do it via ChatGPT. It is just part of the rules of the university. So I've got to give them the other option. I'm just hoping to get more to do it. And once again, then get their response of how that feel, what were your thoughts on having used it, and so on as we do it. But yeah, it's important. And, I'm of the generation of learn how to, add your numbers. You're not always going to have a calculator around you, right? Okay. You both know me well enough to know I embrace all of that, right? Yeah,
Totally.
I embrace that. And so, do I still think you need to know how to do that? Yes. That doesn't mean you need to do it over and over and over again. You just need to know it, and that's the basis of, I think, what a good education would be, and that includes AI.
I'm laughing because there's something I was calculating a couple of weeks ago and I double checked ChatGPT's work. I ran it through like 3 different times, new threads. I was like, I want to make sure this is correct. And I literally did have my calculator. And again, I'm not a math person at all, but I was like, I don't know. I'm going to try it myself.
And the result was?
ChatGPT was correct. I did not need to spend
I just had to ask.
I did not need to spend time looking at numbers and mapping it out myself.
It's once again, I know we're getting off topic. It's not really about AI. I remember way back when in my accounting career, I used to be in property management, and we had the affectionate condo commandos. These were the people that were in their 80s then. That I would come in with the computer generated financial report. And I mean computer generated. I'm just from dot matrix. Okay.
I was going to say the little.
Yeah. And if your listeners don't know what dot matrix is, and we used to make up the numbers. Okay. This is what the reports look like. And there would always be that one man, I hate to say it, I don't want to sound sexist, but it was always the one man who had his pencil and paper and was re-adding the numbers that were sitting on the financial report because he didn't trust the computer. Okay. I get it. I understand that concept. The idea, though, is once again, we don't want students doing that anymore. And so they need to know what to do. They need to know how to edit it. They need to know how to understand it. They need to know the full realm of technology. And we're just on the cusp of AI. I just, who knows what it's going to be like in 20 years. I'll be retired by then, thankfully. But who knows really what's available? And even if I don't even know if AI is the end all.
Probably not.
Because 20 years ago, we thought the internet was the end all of end all, right? So who knows what's coming down the line? It's academia needs to be the first place to embrace it, not the last. We need to prepare the new generations. And we can do very similar to, there was a client that I did training for down here in South Florida that they did what they call reverse mentoring. And what they did was my generation mentored the younger in business. And then the younger mentored the older in technology.
I love that.
And it was I would have preferred to call it mutual mentoring, but they called it reverse mentoring. And if they come out of academia not knowing that, then they're going to be at a disadvantage. And yeah, I know when you're picking up the streets, you really know the best way to use it, to understand that it's there. It's not unethical to use it. It's unethical to claim it's yours. And that's the difference. And like I said, it was unethical to copy out of we had to literally copy it, Ken. We couldn't, do a copy paste from the dictionary, right? We actually had to copy it. We could use the dictionary, we just couldn't copy it and call it ours. Now, of course, the teacher spotted it because, none of us had those SAT words, but it's the same thing you can find in AI now.
Mm-hmm.
I can spot AI generated material. I really can. Most of the time it goes deeper than the questions you're asking. It goes deeper and broader. And also sometimes it doesn't even ask the actual question. It doesn't answer the actual question. It just goes all around it,
I've found that too, actually. And you'll ask it for something small and you'll get 2 paragraphs on what you just want a sentence or 2 response to. But you kind of touched on that a little too, but as like even GPT-4, the last time I ran a report through it, has been evolving so quickly. And let's say, prompt engineering has gotten a lot more people are knowledgeable on it now. I mean, you see courses and videos and everything on that right now. So how do you combat somebody who, let's say, is a very good prompt engineer? I know you have them show you their prompt. A very good prompt engineer who's still trying to pass off GPTs that worked.
one of the challenges we face here in academia is you can't take chat GPT generated work and it show in a plagiarism checker unless chat GPT plagiarized somebody. Like going back to my comment about the New York Times, if there's a paragraph in there that it took from the New York Times, then the plagiarism checker is going to see that as from the New York Times. And I'm going to go to the student and go, you just copied from the New York Times. And they go, no, I didn't.
Wow.
And there comes that. It came from ChatGPT. Oh.
The thing is, though, because if you take the same prompt and you put it in 3 times, you're going to get 3 different answers. You will constantly get different answers. It doesn't really store it it might store it within its own database, but it doesn't store it in an open area that an outside reference checker would find it. And so that was my big resistance 2 years ago is, I can't check this, they're going to get worse at it. Like I said, there are ways that I can see that it is ChatGPT. Once again, it's when they write their first paragraph, the very first week, which is an introduction of themselves with 38 typos and 27 grammatical errors, then week 2, there's not one of either one of them. I tend to think you didn't do this yourself.
I can't. It makes me scared.
Yeah, seriously.
I wasn't born yesterday. Trust me, okay? Those are where red flags are. And that's what a lot of academia is doing, even in-person academia. There's a lot of schools that I'm now finding that are moving back to handwritten tests that are 100%. Done in the classroom, they're getting rid of research papers because they know what's being done in a research paper is not valid, and all they're doing is getting it, cranking it out off the website to smaller, shorter answers in classrooms. It's really tough to do that in an online environment where you just have to find different ways because once again, I hate to say this, you're cheating yourself of an education. Mm-hmm. You're going to get a job and get fired very quickly because you don't know what needs to be done. Or you're going to get a job and get fired because you've been found to be unethical. Okay? And you're doing it to yourself. And so what we need to do is really reinforce that part. Yeah. That it's a valid tool. It's a tool corporate America is embracing. It has to be used properly. And when we can do that, I think we will be successful. And there's a lot of criticism of the up and coming generation, and it's not founded. They're different. We all are. Okay. I think we have 3 different generations sitting here in the room right now. Mm-hmm. And the world's different. Just this demand, and I'm going to go off track here for a moment, but like this demand that they need constant feedback. Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. They grew up in a world playing Simon, and they grew up in a world where they put an answer into the screen and they know right away whether it was right or not. I waited 6 months to find out whether or not I passed the CPA exam. So it's just the world has changed, allowing for that instant feedback, allowing for all of this. And they're willing to put in the work. They just want to be respected to do it. And I think AI is a tool that will help them do that.
It's interesting you say that because I have some friends in California that have kids that are in public elementary school. I'm thinking Monterey County in particular. And this, my friend's daughter is now 10, maybe 11. And when she started, she immediately, like first grade, they were typing, everything was on a computer. They were teaching them, everything was digital. Now they're going back to handwriting. You cannot use a computer. So they're having to learn, like, I don't know how else to say it. It is what it is, but they're learning how to learn in cursive again. So there's almost this shift from the Gen Z to with this beta gen, going back to basics in a sense. It's just interesting.
Yeah, it's some of it is once again to get around the issue of technology. Some of it is, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is the fact that, you've now got, once again, go back to about generations, the generation that's complaining about the younger generation, I hate to tell you, you're the generation who raised them. And I think now you're starting to get another generation of parents who are unhappy about the way they were raised. And so they're having this response of bringing things back and coming back to standards and coming back to these differences. I think that's where it is. Academia doesn't lead at your lower levels. It follows. It follows what parents want. And I live in a state, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it. I live in a state that is put laws into place that if one parent wants something, the rest of the school's got to jump. It's just a matter of community standards. I guess it's a good concept there. And I would probably tell you the parents there are those parents happy that the trend is going in this direction? Are they happy about that change?
I would think, what am I paying for? Why am I sending you to college or why are you going into debt if you're just going to put it into a computer and the computer's going to think?
Oh, I'm talking about the elementary schools kids. And
are
they happy about that?
In a sense, yes.
Community standards. That's exactly what it is.
It's the whole thing of, okay, well, what was going to happen if the power's out? Or I think during COVID, it was so much screen time. Well, okay, now we don't want that anymore. We want you to go outside. And to your point, also, I think I've been texting. I sent my first text message in 1998.
Okay.
And now there's voice to text. Well, if these kids can't articulate a sentence because they're so used to just typing, and they're like LOL with all the different acronyms where I'm like up at Urban Dictionary constantly, their parents are like, what are you talking about? What's going on? So I think, yes. And I'll even say, coming out of Silicon Valley, I consider myself a Zennial. So I'm even more niche because I grew up with a computer since '84 in my house. And I remember a phone book when I was still in high school, selling ad space for the school newspaper. I used a phone book. And now it's like, so it's a phone book. When I facilitate some of these sessions for kids out of college, they're like, I don't know what a phone book is, Catherine. And I'm like, what? So
even I had those. Come on.
Well,
what's a map?
I get it. And I'm not going to say that's a basic skill that's needed to know how to use a phone book. There are other basic skills that are needed, though. One of them not being the example I just about to give you, and that is years ago, I asked my nephew, have you learned your state capitals yet? He just kind of laughed at me and held this up, right? Knowing your state capitals is not ever going to get you a job unless you're working for the Park Service, maybe.
Right. Or politics.
Knowing your state capitals is never going to get you a job. So I'm not criticizing the fact that he didn't learn that. What it was is just simply, it was a memory thing that we had to learn. And of course, why bother spending your time learning that when you can look it up as quickly, right? I get that. I'm not being critical of that. There are other things, though, that, you may want to, for one reason or another, calculate somebody's tip in a restaurant.
Right.
Or there's an even better one. When you look at the bottom and they give you the suggestion tip, I'm going to tell you at least 50% of the time those numbers are not accurate, and they're usually higher than they should be. That's the suggested tips usually about 25, 26%. So yeah, I look at those numbers and I go, you're kidding, right? Okay, and I can calculate 20% really fast, and no, it's not. So that's where, I guess I could pull my phone out and calculate it myself each time, and I'm not saying I'm to the penny accurate. I'm just saying I can quickly glance and see something. And that's a skill that we need to be able to keep. That's a skill when you go back to what you were talking about, Catherine, that you can plug a financial statement into AI and it's going to give you what the problems is. The challenge with that is, what if AI gets it wrong? not everything that we think is wrong is wrong. What do you mean you drove those many miles? Yes, because I did a whole week from Miami to Palm Beach for an entire week worth of mileage. I don't, I kick it out as suspicious, but you can't kick it out as wrong because it's right. And so we still need to have the human brain. There's technology has yet to fully replicate that. And that's my job too, is to enhance that. And that's the way I see it. And that's the reason why I'm a trainer. That's the reason I'm a professor, is because my job is to help that brain get better.
Well, you do it very, very well, Daveen.
I appreciate
Very
it.
well.
Now, you wanted to see that picture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Look at him.
So if you can use it that way and connect with your clients a little bit
Mhm.
differently, you're going to get probably a little more accurate picture into their financial situation. And the
Yep.
taxes will probably be filled out a little bit faster, more accurate on their end. Not in the shoebox. You know what I mean? I'm notorious. Here's the shoebox. Here's my receipts.
Yep. There you go. Now,
Thankfully, those days are over.
the count of ethics that was generated via Microsoft's Copilot. Okay, so there you go. I'm not
I
claiming
gave him 2 calculators.
Yeah, 2
He
calculators.
was ready.
Right?
He was ready.
Check his work.
He's
Okay,
taking
what
it.
goes down? Forget the fact that there's also one on the computer, I'm sure. Still, we're gonna have.
He's got ChatGPT up too. Well, just real quick, we're getting pretty far in time here, but just real quick, what tips would you have for other educators that want to implement AI into their curriculum? Because a lot of people are fighting against it. It's plagiarism, all this stuff we've talked about, but you're finding a constructive way for your students to use it. So what other tips could maybe someone in a similar field or even just an educator in general use?
With the professors I've spoken with, the first thing I'm going to say is learn about it first.
Mm-hmm.
Become comfortable with it first, understand what it can do and what it can't do. And then, just like I'm doing, find a way to introduce it as a resource. So find a way for them to use whichever AI tool is available and let them use it and wade into it very slowly as a tool. And just know this is what you're going to get back from the students. It's not about right or wrong. I really don't really care a lot what answers they come up with a prompt to the question they've got, because I know it's AI generated anyway. This is really a lesson on using AI and understand that. And then just emphasize, because believe it or not, the very next week, they're going to talk about the ethics of. That's the next question that goes into play for them. And
Smart.
That's where it has to go in. The tools can be used. I mean, cars, we just saw, unfortunately, being used. I'm going to use the word, although it's not really the right word, unethically. And norms, right? I just use that word because we're talking about ethics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So any tool that has been built by man can also be used improperly or unethically. It's a matter of creating the environment that it's used properly and allowing people to grow with it.
Great point.
And that's what our job is in academia. And that's the advice I would give to any professor. First, learn what it is. Probably listen to more CatBot
Thanks for the plug.
conversations. Learn what it is, become comfortable with it, and then wade into it and don't fight it, because the employers hiring your students want them to know it.
And on that note, what we will commit to do at the CatBotAI is we'll go ahead and create a guide for academic in general for professors, and just do a quick little book around here's how you can use AI, here's what it is, and go through it. Keep it super high level, just as an intro. We'll drop that in the chat as a give back. I think that's something we can do pretty easily to help folks.
Are we allowed to use AI? Okay.
Proofread it.
Just like your first is.
Say this first.
Cite your sources and you're good.
This was generated by ChatGPT. No, shit.
We won't be using ChatGPT for stuff like that as much. Look, we found something else. We found something
There
else
is
a little.
There is something else. That is true.
There's some others that do not hallucinate as much.
Well, the
Yes.
value, once again, of ChatGPT is it does have that free. And so that's a good way
True.
Yeah.
for the professor to get the students into it without
100%.
to make the investment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, hey, David, thank you. Thanks for taking the
My
time.
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Ken, you want to take us out?
Absolutely. Well, again, as Catherine said, David, always a pleasure having you, talking to you in general, but having you on with us today. And thank you for sharing your insights into how we could kind of use, or anyone in academia can use AI as a tool and not as a crutch, and use it ethically. So I think that was really the message that a lot of us are getting here today. So thank you again for that. And from myself, Ken Penachini, and from Catherine, thank you very much, and meow meow.
Meow, meow, everybody. Take care.